Interested in investigation and security? Whether you are already a professional or you are in the beginning stages, take all of your classes at the National Investigative Training Academy. Choose from over 200 courses, all written and taught by experts in the field. The National Investigative Training Academy, or NITA, has offered high-level investigative and security training for over 12 years. Like live classes, NITA has those too. Sign up today for private investigation and security courses and use brand ambassador code B as in boy, A as in Adam, 2367. Take a look at investigativeacademy.com. You'll find the link in our show notes.
Hello and welcome back to Crossing the Tape. We have for you once again a miniature episode, the next installment in our Jack the Ripper series. As always, I am Brendan.
And I'm Hillary.
Please sign the crime scene log and get ready to hear more bad news.
Yes. Unfortunately, this one is the most brutal of all the deaths.
Oh, good.
And this...
Just in time.
Right. This is the fourth murder committed by Jack the Ripper, who, of course, we still don't know who it is. And there was one more attributed to him that we'll cover next time, and then we'll get into some evidentiary value that was found at each scene. But today, we're here to talk about Catherine Eddowes. Unfortunately, Catherine's death was the most brutal of all of them, and she was murder number 4. The MO of the homicide appeared to be somewhat different, though, than the others. So for about a minute, police thought, maybe this isn't Jack the Ripper's doing.
And if it wasn't, was it easier just to say, that guy got another one? And then if they did catch him, just anyone who died in the area, they could blame it on him and wrap up a bunch of cases.
Maybe. And I kind of thought, too, well, maybe he's a copycat killer, and they went further to make a point. But,
Because by this time... after the first 3, he's fairly infamous.
Yes, and so I think newspapers and everything had stories about the murders because they were so brutal, and so abnormal. I mean, not that murder is normal at all, but they were a different level. Yeah. So it kind of makes me wonder if this one was a copycat killer, but I don't know. It's one of those things we will never know, unfortunately.
Right.
But because it was a little bit different, it begs the question, did someone else kill her, or, was he escalating? That's the other...
His style could have been evolving.
Right. Because as we know, with most serial killers, their style or MO, it does evolve, it does progress.
Right.
And often it goes from somewhat violent to horrifically violent. If they keep killing.
Right. Sometimes just, torture and masochism, and then that becomes flat out murders later on.
And then the murders become more brutal. Right. So that's another side of it. Could be a copycat, could be him, but he's escalated. Right.
He got bored with the same old from the first 3.
Catherine was found on her back, partially nude, and had been disemboweled, which was new. That was something that hadn't happened before. The others, they had, if you remember, they had, stab wounds, and they were cut a certain way, and it was very surgical, which is why they always thought it was somebody in the medical field. Mm-hmm. And they were all found in a block area that was near a hospital. So that was the other thinking. But this one, she was actually disemboweled. And during that time, the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee received a letter from the alleged killer, claiming they had removed her kidney, fried it, and ate it.
Jeez.
But I kind of don't think that was actually true. I think that was just somebody, stirring the pot.
Yeah, some idiot trying to make a stir.
However, authorities did not believe the person who wrote the letter was the killer. It is unfortunate that at the time there was no way to verify documents, and forensic science had not advanced like it has today. So they couldn't... there's certain things they couldn't do. They couldn't forensically analyze that document. Today, we could have, verified it, looked at, we could have put, ultraviolet on anhydrous for, fingerprints. Yeah. And at that time they didn't have that ability. So that's too bad.
Yeah. And then we would have given whoever wrote it a stern talking to, because it probably wasn't the Ripper.
Right. Fast forward, though, to 2014, and DNA testing was done to compare a sample, possibly semen, on her shawl. The result was a possible connection to one of the descendants of a man suspected to be Jack the Ripper. So they did, later on there was DNA testing, conducted on this particular murder.
Yes, they have tried.
But nothing was ever confirmed because the shawl had been handled so many times that...
Through the years, the decades, the centuries.
Yes, the centuries. The fear was it was cross-contaminated. But my thing with it is if there was DNA that linked a descendant
of someone who was suspected at the time.
Yes, if someone who was suspected, then why wasn't that pursued a little further? And maybe they couldn't really do anything else. But doesn't it seem kind of odd that after all these centuries that there was a piece of DNA that came up that linked somebody that the police were actually looking into? And unfortunately there was too much red tape and too many gray areas for them to go further.
Right.
But to me, it seems like it would be at least a substantial clue.
Now, what kind of puts that stuff on shaky ground for me? It was DNA that was on her shawl.
Right.
Was Catherine Eddowes also a lady of the night? Like somebody
I was just about to say that. I believe she was, so it could have just been...
a previous client.
Right. Right.
She was wearing the same outfit.
It doesn't mean that he killed her.
It could mean...
He used her services, And
that guy might have been a suspect because... Well, we saw old so-and-so walking around with her a couple hours before she died.
Right. I thought that too. So I think
it is an indication that it may have been, but that's not...
It might have just been a customer.
Right. At this point, we're not going to be able to bridge that gap as to whether it was the killer or a lonely man.
Right. So, yeah, there is that. And I agree with you. I kind of thought that too. I thought, well, it is... interesting that they found a connection, but like you said, she was, another prostitute.
Yeah.
So she probably had a lot of different DNA, findings.
But still super interesting that from that far back, that all the way up in 2014,
right,
they were able to do some pretty conclusive DNA testing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because familial DNA will connect, a family member from somebody in the past, that you've got the same genetic makeup.
Yeah.
So, it did help quite a bit. But, again, unfortunately, I don't think any of them are ever going to be solved. There was a man that they kind of suspected it could have been, and we'll get into some of that in a later episode. But it's just too bad that they didn't have the advancements we do today.
Yes.
And it's too bad we're able to do it now, but it's been so long. And who knows how that evidence was stored and, we don't know.
Right. But the fact that they were able to get something off that
it's pretty interesting.
So many years, many, many decades later.
Right.
It shows you how far forensic testing has come.
Yeah.
And that's all. I mean, that alone makes it an intriguing case.
Oh, yeah.
That possibly they could, through more testing at a later date,
right,
find even more information.
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was interesting too. Another point back to, they said the DNA they tested was semen. That doesn't really go with the rest of the murders.
Right.
But it fits her profession,
Yes.
I mean, so...
Right. There wasn't indications of assault.
No, I don't think any of the other victims were raped or anything. So, to me, you're probably right.
It is more likely that someone else was present, and then after the job was done.
Right. She probably was murdered, unfortunately, not too long after.
Right. Well, bummer.
Right. But interesting.
Yes.
It's one of the first ones out of the 4 we've discussed so far that actually had some, advances.
Forensic value in the modern day.
But next time we'll talk about the final murder that we know of. I have a feeling,
there were probably
there was
others.
probably more. They just weren't connected or found. Maybe they were in a different area.
Enough. Yeah.
But we'll discuss the 5th and final one next time, and then some evidentiary value after that. But as always, we thank you for joining us.
Please sign the crime scene log on your way out.
Stay safe.
And so long. 511 has collaborated with the best of the best tactical teams around to develop their VXI product line. This collaboration has resulted in top-of-the-line gear for not only SWAT operators, but all first responders, outdoorsmen, hunters, and anyone who will only accept the best gear available. I had a chance to try out the new Sigurd shirt. Not only does it look great, but it feels great as well. The Sigurd shirt features 511's CryoTac technology, guaranteeing you'll stay dry and cool. The Sigurd shirt can be worn comfortably under a plate carrier, or on its own as a classy look at your next barbecue. This collared shirt won't be out of place at the shooting range or the golf course, ensuring you'll feel comfortable in any setting. Get your Sigurd shirt from 511 Tactical today.